Hello, thank you for stopping by. I'm so glad you're here, and welcome to Friday Sews, where I talk about what I have been doing this week with my sewing and what I intend to do next week or in the coming week with my sewing. I haven't been super productive so far this week, so I have finished the tunic I was working on for the Star Wars costume. I am almost finished with the Dickey. I will go over both of those. That's about it. So I'm gonna go through and show you some of my vintage sewing patterns that I have. I've wanted to go over them for a while now, so I thought today would be a good day to do it when I didn't have a lot of updates to give. I have been in a little bit more of a cooking / baking mood, so I did try just making a baking video with very simple brownie recipe, and I'm gonna continue with that while I'm in a baking mood. So I'm gonna do a few more videos. I've just been working on sound quality, things like that. And I have a new stand mixer coming, a Bosch Super Plus stand mixer, which has absolutely nothing to do with sewing, so it's not really pertinent to Friday Sews, but I thought I would mention that. And I might go over a little bit of why I chose that one later in the video, so you can get through all the sewing stuff, and then I'll talk about the stand mixer that I've got coming. So if you're not interested in it, you can just dip out of the video then. So I'm gonna finish my coffee and then move to the sewing room and go over everything. Here in the sewing room now, and this place is getting a little bit messy. I'm falling into this bad habit of dumping stuff in here throughout the week, just so I don't have to deal with it. When I come home from work, I'm tired, I've got stuff to do, and I just, throw whatever random odds and ends I can't deal with at the moment. I just end up sitting them in here and closing the door and walking away from it. And what happens is when I come in here to be creative and like do sewing and stuff, first I have to spend an hour cleaning and tidying everything up, and then by the time that's happened, all my creative motivation is starting to sap away, so I'll just power through a little bit and then walk away from it. So this has been 2 or 3 weeks in a row now that I've had this problem where I'm just dumping stuff in here, so I really need to get out of this habit. I think what I need to do is do another deep clean and reorganization of everything, because the layout is working out really well for me. Even at its worst, this sewing room gets nowhere near as messy as the previous setup did. So as far as functional sewing capacity, this setup is working out really well for me, considering the space constraints and everything I have. A full-sized cutting table, counter height cutting table, lots of storage, several worktops. I got a lot in this little tiny 9x12 room. Not complaining, but I do need to, I guess, focus on reorganizing the little odds and ends. All the drawers and everything have become more and more just shove things in there. And I did that for quite a while, but now they're all full. And when I come in here with things that I need to get rid of because I don't know how to deal with them for a moment, I no longer have any drawer space to shove them into, so they end up piling up on the tables, and I just got a bunch of random junk that keeps happening. Anyways, that's not what I intended to talk about with this video, but that's what came to mind as soon as I came in this room is, man, this place is a mess. I'm gonna figure out how to deal with that. I just got to go through and sort stuff out. So starting with talking about the Dickey for the Star Wars costume. Dickeys are such weird things to me, but I'm almost finished with this. I need to finish hemming the edges, the outer edge. So I guess it just fits like this. Like I said, I need to finish the outer edges and add some ties to it. I've never made a Dickey before. It's kind of weird. I guess a more common usage for this would be for women when they wanted something underneath like a low cut blouse or something to give them some decency, a little bit of a modesty panel sort of thing. So, super easy to make. I've busted this out in 30 minutes to the extent that it's finished. Like I said, I still need to hem. So I guess then the tunic goes over it. So this seems kind of weird. It just adds an extra layer underneath the tunic. almost could have gotten by with just adding a second band onto it so you can see the band. But whatever, the Dickey was easy enough to make. And I just want to fill out the full costume. So I need to get the shoulder armor made and a belt. Those are both going to be out of a brown rayon linen blend. So the shoulder armor and the belt are going to be out of this brown linen rayon blend, which, you know, I think complements the look pretty well. And then I've got to get the cloak made. I can power through this if I really get motivated. I really, really want to get this done this weekend, which is a big ask because I'm going to be baking and stuff too. But I really want to get that done. And I really wish that I had some leather to make the shoulder armor out of, to make it more like substantial and armor-like. But I made the cost decision to like go with the brown rayon linen blend rather than leather or pleather. And that was to free up money for the cloak material, which the cloak fabric was the most expensive in this project by far. This tunic is it was the cheapest. It is 100% polyester. I think it looks really cool. I like the sheen and stuff to it. If I were making like a dress or something, there's probably like really cool, like fancy dresses you could make, considering this is fairly cheap fabric. But this one was the medium priced one, and I decided to go with this instead of something cheaper because it does have a little bit of sheen. I like the texture to it. It, you know, can hold the shape a little bit. It's got a little bit more sturdiness, but it's got some, I kind of wanted to minimize the flow because it's supposed to be armor and stiff, but I'm going to be interfacing that, I think. And then the cloak, I've mentioned all of this in previous videos. Sorry if I'm repeating myself, but the cloak is going to be this 100% linen, other than the like metallic threads that run through it. It's got like some sparkle to it. I don't know how well you can see that. So that's really where I'm at with my sewing for right now. Like I said, I think the messiness of the sewing room has started to demotivate me for for creative purposes, like actually sewing. So I need to get that organized. I need to figure out a better system, and I need to stop just dumping random stuff in here throughout the week, so I can deal with it later when I have time. I just need to take every day, no matter how like much I don't want to, I need to take like 10 to 15 minutes every day to just organize my life and sort things away. I think that would make me happier on many, many levels. So moving on, like I said, that's all the sewing updates I have for this week. So I wanted to go over a few of my vintage sewing patterns. I pulled them out and I realized there's way too many for me to go over in one video. So I'm just going to go over the weirder ones, or a couple of costumes, and then an underwear pattern that I think kind of cracks me up. I don't know if I want to try making it sometime or not. All right, starting off with this Santa Claus sewing pattern. This is a 1930s McCall Santa Claus costume. And I'm very, very proud of this one. This is a really nice pattern to have. I have once very carefully pulled everything out of the package and looked to make sure I had all the pieces and the instructions. Everything is there, and I may try to trace this off very carefully someday, or I may not. I'm thinking about getting like comic book protectors. Like they have these like comic book frames where you can put it in like the middle and hang them on the wall, and it's, you know, sealed away for all time, just to keep it safe. And I'm thinking about doing some of that with some of my sewing patterns, you know, putting them in the protective case and hanging them on the wall as decoration, or even just sitting them on shelves. That might be a good use for some of my shelves up here. But that's a project for the future. Another pattern that kind of cracks me up. This one's not super expensive or rare. I got this pretty cheap, but this one is in perfect condition. I have another version of this where the envelope is all torn up, but all the pieces are there. So that's the one I will use if I make this costume. I'll use that pattern and just leave this one in the package, because this paper is in excellent condition and the front art is so nice. So this is I just love the way this front artwork looks. So this is a pattern from the 1950s, I think mid to late 50s. They had a few different versions of this one out. And so I made sure to get the one with the penguin costume. I think there was one with like some not that great caricatures of people that I didn't want to buy. It's kind of hard getting vintage sewing patterns that, you know, I feel happy with. But you got the penguin costume, you got a Martian, like alien Martian sort of thing, and then you have a devil costume. So I might make this for Halloween. I almost did it last year. I went with the Plague Doctor instead. I think I might do this with my Halloween costume this year. I was gonna go with like maybe the devil one. We'll see how it goes. This one I have shown on this before. This is my Revolutionary War, American Revolutionary War costume. And, yeah. And this is my next big sewing project that I'm going to be working on after the Star Wars costume. So I want to get started on this, and it's going to take a massive amount of fabric. All of these costumes are just fabric hogs. So unless you want to buy like the cheapest like poly possible, it's going to be expensive, which I guess is why so many costumes you buy in the store are made from like such like paper thin plastic sheeting almost, because it's just, for a costume, unless you want to spend way too much money, it's going to be terrible material. So it's, you know, compromise. And finally, I just wanted to show you the this pattern. It is Advance. I believe this is 1930s. 30s or 40s underwear costume or underwear sewing pattern. And I got this one for $5 with free shipping, which if you have ever looked for men's underwear sewing patterns, like vintage underwear sewing patterns, these can go for ridiculous amounts of money when people know what they've got and they charge it. I had a similar pattern that I bid, like, I don't know how much I bid on it, but I thought for sure I was gonna get it. It was like $75 I put it on the bid, and somebody outbid me. I was flabbergasted. I thought that was a high enough bid that nobody would go over it. And when I bid on online auctions, I don't keep track and like nickel and dime bid one right after the other. I put in like my absolute maximum bid and I just leave it there and I walk away. So it's just easier to me. Like I don't sit there and fidget back and forth with bidding, because I figure if someone else is going to outbid me, they're going to outbid me no matter what. So I don't want to stress out about it. So anyways, another one of these I put like that same insanely high bid in and I didn't get it, and I was like super frustrated. And I was watching for these patterns for a while and they were all coming up like 50 or 60 bucks. I don't know, a lot of money, or they were sold really quickly and I was just frustrated with it. I found a couple of like afterwards that seemed cheaper, like 20-ish bucks. And it just depends on the seller, the pattern itself, you know, how much they know about what they got, and who's buying at the time, because it's a very, men's vintage sewing patterns are very strange price-wise, because they are either completely worthless, you couldn't give them away, or people snap them up instantly. And sometimes it is pretty arbitrary, the reasons why any of that happens. But if you get like someone who's starting a collection and there's like a type of men's vintage sewing pattern that they don't have yet, then they will, I know from personal experience, they will pay the earth to get that one specific type of vintage sewing pattern that they don't have yet, and then they will never have to buy it again. So for me, at the time, it was an underwear pattern, a vintage men's underwear pattern. It's just, you know, a really nice shirt pattern, really nice jacket, some cool costumes, vintage underwear pattern, vintage pants patterns. There's not a lot of different varieties to men's sewing patterns. So if you find a nice example of a type of pattern, you are willing to pay for it. That is all I have for these patterns. I don't know about this underwear pattern, if I'm actually going to ever make it, but I just thought it was really cool. So if you are just here for the sewing, then that's all of the sewing for today. Thank you for watching the video, and please like, and if you have not already, please consider subscribing. I really appreciate all of that. If you want to stay and listen to me talk about baking, then I've got a few more minutes on that. I'm just going to go over a couple of plans and some and talk about the stand mixer I'm buying. So for this cooking and baking, what I have decided to do is go through an old church cookbook of my mother's. It was actually edited, I guess you'd say, by my aunt. She typed up all the recipes and decided where to put them and send them off to be published. She was a preacher's wife for a couple of Church of God Pentecostal churches in Oklahoma, I think in Comanche, Oklahoma, and one in Broken Bow, and maybe a couple of others that I'm not remembering. But definitely those two places I'm aware of. So she made these cookbooks for both places. And this version was the one, this copy was the one my mom used the most. And I was looking through it and I just realized that there is a style of like American home cooking that is sort of falling out of favor and not as common. A lot of these recipes just aren't as prevalent these days. When people are cooking at home, they are using more and more using recipes from the internet. And things are just becoming a little bit more standardized and homogenized all across the US. So I really think that these old church cookbooks have a really unique, almost like much more regionally focused style of recipes to them that I think is just something worth remembering. So I thought I would just do my little part of in my little tiny corner of the internet and record some of these old recipes for posterity. I just think it's interesting to go through. It's a time and place that has passed because these old church cookbooks, these aren't as commonly used. These women, most of them have passed. Most of their daughters have passed at this time. This book is from the 90s, and it was a lot of the older women of the church who made these recipes. And, you know, it's just something I wanted to record and go through and just have fun with. So I made the brownie recipe just to dip my toes into the water, trying to film, and it's a super simple recipe. My next one is going to be a scripture cake, which I think is very common in a lot of these cookbooks. It's a very old thing. It was very like 19th century sort of thing to make for young ladies with their Bible to go through and look up all these scriptures and make a cake. Very wholesome, wholesome family fun sort of for well-behaved young ladies. So I thought that would be interesting to go through and make this scripture cake. That's going to be next. I want to do like a lot of the casseroles and things. I know these church cookbooks are often special occasion recipes. They're not necessarily daily eaters. Some of the recipes are, but it's very heavy on the cakes, candies, cookies, or like big casseroles that you take to special occasions. So just being, you know, me and my partner, it's a lot to cook. I'm going to try to shrink these recipes down as much as possible so I don't end up gaining a lot of weight eating all of this heavy food. But we'll see how it goes. For the baking, I have just used a hand mixer for a long time. The one I'm using is getting kind of old and the motor is wearing out on it. It just doesn't have a lot of power. So I was thinking about buying a new hand mixer. And then once I started down that road, I decided, okay, well, let me go for a stand mixer. Problem is, I don't like things sitting on my counter that much. So I want something that I can put away. And I started looking at different types of stand mixers, and the KitchenAids just didn't strike my fancy because they're super heavy. So that makes it a little bit harder to lift in and out of the cabinet. And also they're very tall. So having a cabinet that I can put them into was more of a challenge. So that brought me to the Bosch compact stand mixer. And I liked that one a lot, and I came that close to going with that one. I was waffling back and forth between the Bosch compact, and once I started looking at the compact, I saw the Bosch Super Plus. And I don't know, at the end of the day, I don't know if maybe I should have gone with the Bosch compact. It's very much smaller, very lightweight. It would be easier to take in and out of the cabinet. If, you know, I'm just gonna be making small batches of things. But my heart told me I wanted the fancier mixer, so I went for the Bosch Super Plus with the black, comes with a stainless steel bowl. The regular Bosch comes with a plastic bowl, and I do want to make some breads and things. Making bread was always a big thing in my family for generations. We've always had like a special homemade bread recipe, and it's just standard, like there's homemade bread around quite often, and you better know how to make it. So the thing with the plastic bowl was what I've seen on some of the online reviews is that the bread, especially the smaller batches, don't necessarily stick as well to the sides of the plastic. I think it's similar with the creaming. And also I do want to make some like Italian meringue buttercreams, and you can't pour that hot liquid into a plastic bowl, it'll melt. So I went with the one that comes with the stainless steel bowl standard, so I wouldn't have to buy an extra bowl. And I'm happy with that decision. I went with a locally owned like appliance electronics store called Apt, ABT Apt. And it's, if you're from Chicago or if you've lived in Chicago for any amount of time, you've heard of Apt. A lot of people have bought all of their appliances there for generations. My partner is the same. He is from the northwest side of Chicago, like right on the border of like Norridge, border of Norridge and Chicago, like along Foster Avenue. That's where he's from, and his family, you know, his parents bought all their appliances from Apt. He has, this is like third place he's owned. He bought all of his appliances from Apt. Anytime like we had our dishwasher break and we replaced it from Apt. We had our oven break, we replaced it from Apt. It's just what you do. It is locally owned and they have excellent service. They always give you a good price, and they're, you know, super reliable, and they also have same-day delivery for things like this. So I went with Apt. It was a standard, I think it was $529 for this stand mixer, but it's next day delivery. So I bought it at like 8 o'clock at night last night, and it's supposed to be here today, which is great. And I really like the idea of buying from a local family-owned store rather than Amazon. The downside is that they didn't have any of the attachments for the mixer. There are some like kits that came with like a bread making kit or a cake making kit, but all of those seem to be sold out. Like all I could find anywhere was just the base mixer, and then I can find the attachments separately. So I did buy the attachments from Amazon. One of them is a bowl scraper attachment. So I got the cake attachments and a bowl scraper. So you put that on like over the cake attachments, and it scrapes the side of the bowl down as you go. It works with any of the attachments, but it will scrape the side of the bowl down as you go, which seems super nice when making cakes or cookies, like creaming butter. And so that's another big reason I went with the Bosch, is that it is an open top bowl. It has like a center post that does the whipping, or that holds the attachments and spins. And the top of the bowl is completely open, which I thought was just super cool. So I had to have it. I wanted it. I needed a mixer, or I wanted a mixer. I didn't need a stand mixer. I wanted a stand mixer, and I wanted to go with one that I really thought was cool. And I'm a bit of a contrarian. I like to do things just to be a little bit different sometimes, for no particular reason. So I thought I would go with the Weirdo mixer. So if you listen to all of this about baking, I really appreciate it, especially considering this is a channel about sewing mostly at this point, and this is a Friday Sews video. So I appreciate you sticking around to listen about baking. I'm going to be doing, like I said, more baking videos. This channel will continues to be more like general home ec sort of stuff, I guess is how you describe it. But I'm keeping up the sewing. I'm not cutting back on the sewing whatsoever. It's just going to be sewing. And so if you have liked this video, please let me know by giving a like, and if you're not already, please consider subscribing. I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the future.